This meeting is being recorded.
Wow.
That's very aggressive. Okay. Hi, everyone. Welcome to our Wednesday call. Excited to do this today. We are going to do more Q&A style call because we have some questions that we wanted to answer on the sheet. So I'm going to pull that up here. Yeah. Okay. Sam, were there any that you noticed right away on
Yep.
that we should start with?
Well, we could go with, is there a certain amount of time you should try to be in maintenance and tracking before moving to an intuitive eating approach?
Oh, yeah, I like that one. Okay, because I think we've answered these other ones. So as far as maintenance goes and tracking macros before moving to intuitive eating approach, I personally think that is so individual. There's no right way to do it. So when I have a client, I will structure transitioning to intuitive eating based on their personality, and how if, like, for me, I'm a very laid back individual. I love data, but I'm not emotionally attached to data. So I can transition from tracking extremely strict on macros to intuitive with I don't even need a transition. Like, I can go completely to intuitive eating with not a care, knowing the scale is probably going to fluctuate, but that won't stress me out. So that's one end of the spectrum. And I would say probably the other end of the spectrum would be someone that's very meticulous. Sam, do you want to explain kind of how you feel best transitioning?
I am a very goal-oriented person. I am not laid back. So I would do better just slowly transitioning, maybe taking away a day once a week and then kind of going from there. Or maybe stop tracking, I don't know, a certain food I don't know, my vegetables, stop tracking my vegetables, for example, because I know I'm eating enough. Things like that. I would have to slowly make those changes and still continue to track and kind of ease into it, because I do love data and it helps me just stay focused. I have a little bit of ADHD too. So sometimes it's hard for me to if I don't have that structure, it's hard for me to remember to you need to go eat at this time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
absolutely.
I need to ease into it.
Yeah. And I think so how you could do that. So what would that look like if you stopped tracking your vegetables, but you were still tracking your food? What would that look like for you?
I just would stop weighing and measuring my vegetables. I would just eat my vegetables intuitively. I wouldn't be focused on adding that to my app and weighing them and stuff like that. But I would still make it, do the other things and kind of ease into it. And then maybe I stop tracking my dinner, or maybe I stop tracking
on your veggies. So if you stop tracking vegetables, you're pretty structured and know probably about how many calories of veggies you eat on average a day. So would you lower your MyFitnessPal goal about 100 calories, or would you not worry about that? Keep it the same. But would you still hit the same macronutrient goals?
I mean, vegetables that tend to be the one, especially the ones that I tend to choose, tend to be such low in calories that it wouldn't really be that big of a deal to me.
Yeah, perfect. So, and then I know for me, I eat about 100 calories worth of veggies a day. So that could be an option too. If you were very nervous about that jump in calories, then you could bring okay, I'm going to bring calories down 50 and I'm going to not track veggies, or I'm going to bring them down 75, not track veggies. So that's an option too. But I think either way, not touching your calories or bringing them down just depends on your stress levels with the change and how that change could affect your results in that way.
But we also eat a lot of same foods too. So yes. I like what I like, and I just enjoy it. So I just know, yeah.
Yeah. Keep going.
I think a lot of that too, like Michaela said, right? So individualized. Where are you in terms of meeting your goals, right? Making sure that is aligned with stepping away. Is it a more aesthetic goal, or is your goal more so okay, let's work on the relationship with food? In which case, taking a step back from logging and weighing and tracking is part of that journey. Sure, the manner in which you step back needs to be aligned with your goals and your personality. But a lot of it has to do with how much experience do you have tracking, all right? Most of our coaches have a ton, right? I have the ability to look at a plate of food. And no, I'm not going to be, you know, down to the gram accurate, but I have a pretty good idea of the nutrients that I'm getting. So stepping away from tracking, I can still have an idea of, you know, where the heck am I in terms of where my goals should be. And everyone's comfort level is going to be different. It's not like a right or wrong thing. But again, the method in which you pull back or the timing of that, so many things need to be taken into consideration.
Yeah, I would say a timeline of being in maintenance would be like, I would give yourself at least a month, because that's enough time to, and during that month, it's not just like you're blindly throwing things in MyFitnessPal and like, okay, I hit my numbers. It's more like, all right, what am I eating in a day? How often am I eating in the day? What does my plate look like? Like about how much protein is on my plate for each meal. So paying attention and using that as an opportunity to learn and visually see how your plate looks, how often, like the frequency you're eating throughout the day, what your body feels like after your meals. Like, are you more full? Are you just satisfied? Like paying attention, tuning in, so that when you go to an intuitive approach, you have some things that you're using to guide you. So
also some things that I like to do, like, so normally, like if I have a certain goal, you know, whether that be gaining or losing or whatever I'm tracking, I use the food scale. But when I want my goals to move intuitively, so like maybe I'm using my food scale to measure it, but like first I'm taking a handful of my oats and I'm guessing what my portion size would be. And then I'm putting it in my bowl and see how big that discrepancy is. And then you get comfortable kind of using your hand. And again, you're just kind of easing into it. You're not being super specific on the grams. You're going kind of by measurements, and you're easing.
You're training your eyes, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You're training yourself to trust your own capabilities. Yeah, your intuition. There you go.
I'm thinking also being at a place where your macro distribution is balanced, like it's important. So if that hasn't been the case, tracking for as long as you need to track where a balanced macro distribution is not hard, like where that's just natural for you and where it's kind of easy to make that happen. I think, and also just tracking in general isn't hard, isn't something you need to use a lot of energy on. I think that's probably a good sign that you are ready to be more intuitive when things are just like strolling along with the tracking and the macro distribution and not using a lot of energy on that. So yeah. How long it takes you to get there, basically.
Yeah. And I think also asking yourself, like, does it feel scary to move to an intuitive approach? And if it does, like, that's probably a good indication that it's something you should work toward. Because that shouldn't feel scary, eating your food without tracking it. But it can feel scary if you've been doing it for a long time and you're, and you like, you know, that's your kind of your comfort now. So taking it slow, giving yourself grace, like this is a new territory and there's a lot of unknowns here. So that can feel really scary for a lot of people. So deciding what works best for you, whether it's I'm going to stop tracking my vegetables and just be intuitive with that, or if it's I'm going to stop tracking everything besides my protein and I'm just going to make sure I'm hitting my protein and I'm going to judge how I feel after each meal to know, like, okay, is this about right for maintenance? Am I going to look at my, you know, I'm still eating 4 meals a day. I'm still including vegetables with each of my meals. Like having some kind of like daily non-negotiables can be helpful too, that can anchor you to know, like, yeah, I can kind of have a checklist. Like that was a good day. And essentially, like, I'm going to have like a fistful of protein, 4 meals a day. I'm going to have a cup of vegetables, 1 to 2 cups of veggies, 3 meals a day, 2 meals a day, whatever it is that like your norm. And then maybe when you stop tracking, maybe you still eat the same 2 breakfasts every day for a little while. And you eat kind of like a similar structure for lunch where you have a protein, lots of vegetables and fat for toppings. And then dinners are like, all right, I'm going to try some new things here with dinners. I've been wanting to make recipes. It's hard to track with recipes. It's overwhelming. I'm going to try some new things. Or maybe you track 5 days a week and you have one weekday where you don't track and one weekend where you don't track. And that's an opportunity to maybe try a new recipe on those non-tracked days and then just gauge, like, how do I feel? Because sometimes you can't really see everything in the recipe, right? If it's combined, like a casserole or a soup or whatever. And so just going back to like, all right, visually, is there enough protein here? And how do I feel after I eat this meal? Do I feel energized or do I feel like full and sluggish? And starting to kind of adjust, make little adjustments based off of that. But I think the main thing is when you're in maintenance, you should be feeling pretty good with where you're at and not needing to like aggressively make change. So you should also know that the scale is going to ebb and flow. And you should be able to be okay with that because it's going to ebb and flow potentially even a little bit more with less, I guess, with more variance, because there's going to be more variance when you are more intuitive. You're just going to be not as meticulous with your intake. So being okay with that too, and have really, really realistic expectations there. And that could be a time where maybe instead of weighing yourself every morning, you decide to be more intuitive with that too. Like, okay, I'm not trying to see any change on the scale right now. Maybe I check in every couple of weeks if I want to, or I just see how I feel. Like, how are my clothes fitting? How's my energy level? How are my workouts feeling? How are my lifts going? And do it in more of an intuitive, like if you're going to have a more intuitive approach to your eating, then that is like a welcome opportunity to potentially have a more intuitive approach with your metric tracking as well.
And also remember, like, your maintenance is a range. Like if you go over X number or go lower than X number, you're not all of a sudden going to gain a bunch of weight and lose a bunch of weight. Like it's a range. So like just remembering that mentally can be helpful as well too. Like just because you stop tracking and you had that little bit of discrepancy,
yes,
don't get too stressed about it.
Right. Because in a deficit, we're bringing calories down and we're like hitting that perfect sweet spot of feeling good, losing fat, and continuous progress. Where in maintenance, it's like we can maintain our weight at, like Sam said, a range of calories. For some people, that range is smaller. For some, it's larger. And also, for some, like you could be on the upper end of that range and body comp could be changing a little bit, or you could be on the lower end of that range and body comp could be changing a little bit. So those are just kind of all things to consider and think through.
It's just like when you start tracking, it can feel hard when you start tracking. And maybe you slowly want to add these habits. Maybe you slowly want to start tracking protein. Maybe you slowly want to start, tracking certain things. And then it's kind of like the reverse of that, just easing into it.
I was thinking that what happens many times when we stop tracking is that we also stop caring as much about what we eat. So like just being mindful of that, like now when
accountability piece,
like how does my eating, how does it change? Does it change? And then just be mindful of that. What does that change mean in that case? And is that change actually putting you in a surplus or maybe not benefiting your body comp? Like if that's going to chronically continue, maybe then you're not in a good place. But I think that could also be a good thing to experiment. Just see like what is your natural reaction when stop tracking, and go through that, and just be very mindful of all of the changes you make when you're not actually seeing everything black on white on paper. And it will take some time for your body to change. I think I like I used to tell my clients, like I think everything that we do that is new, it's an experiment that we can take good information from, that we can take, no matter if it's going to take us maybe for a short period of time into, somewhere we don't want to be. We can always have, as long as we have the knowledge to take us away from that again, take us back and kind of will it back in, then we can use that information. I think that is always positive to have in mind when things feel scary as well. It's like all information is good information, basically.
You can always pivot, for sure.
Yeah.
And I think I lost my train of thought there. I had another question. I was reading it and it's kind of related on how to stop picking on kids' food. So this is one that we can all relate to, even on the team. We're moms mostly, and So we've experienced this. I think like I have a few things like that I don't even like, that if my kids have out, I'll just grab it. And it's like boring enough that I just want to keep eating it. Like goldfish, for instance. Actually, the hardest one for me is those peanut butter pretzels from Costco. I don't know if you guys have had those. They have like peanut butter on the inside and they're okay. Like, but I love peanut butter. So it's like, I'll just have one. Oh, they're out. I'm just going to have one of those. But the tub is like a 10-gallon tub. And so it's so easy to just mindlessly have those. And they're very high calorie. So I can relate to this. Like, it's, first of all, I think just knowing like you're human and if food's in front of you, it's going to be hard to resist it. But what helps me is, well, throwing those away, because I don't even know if my kids eat them. It's like I buy them and I think they're going to eat them and then I eat them. So the food that actually your kids like, keep those on hand. The ones that they don't like and that are hard for you, like, don't even have it as a temptation for you. Just get rid of it. But then along with that, if it is something, I would say, for instance, okay, there's some things that I just am not interested in eating and some things though that do sound good. So I sometimes will make my kids pot stickers or like these little mini pizzas. And the other day I made them these little mini pizzas. And of course you feel bad because kids are great at being intuitive eaters. Like if they're just not hungry anymore, they're just not going to eat it. They're going to leave 4 pizzas on the counter. And as a mom that just made those pizzas, it can be hard. Like, those look really good. Why is no one's eating those? And I just feel like it's my responsibility to eat them because that's sad. But I think remembering, okay, is this something I actually want? Like, pause for a second, get a drink of water and ask yourself, does this look good to me? Like, do I want to include this in my day? If you do, get yourself a plate out and put it on a plate and eat it. Sit down and eat a meal, eat that food. That's what I did the other day. And it was a delicious pizza. But instead of just like, I'm going to like mindlessly pick at their food, then you finish that meal and you're maybe eating things that like you don't even really enjoy, but it's just there and you aren't being intentional with it. So if it's something that you want to eat and you decide last minute, like, oh, I didn't plan on eating this, but it actually looks really good, then turn it into a meal and maybe pair it with a little bit of vegetables or something that's going to actually sustain you too. If it's not, like, for instance, if it's goldfish, like, get a half cup, measure it out, put it on your plate and have a little protein and vegetables with it. Like, you can enjoy those goldfish, but you're probably only going to eat the half cup. You're probably not going to like eat 6 at a time every time you walk past the box and then not be sure how much you had. And then it really wasn't even that satisfying anyways. Those are kind of my tips.
There's also like, I feel like with kids food, like there's a label on it. It's like, oh, that's the kids food, right? So
Yeah.
let's change
That's
our
true.
perspective on things, right? Like,
For
let's
sure.
not label food as good or bad or right or wrong, adult or kid, right? It's food. And gosh, if you like the freaking goldfish, well, then let's make it so that, you don't feel like you're restricting it, you're depriving it of yourself. Like, that's what most of that mindset is just like, ooh, it's in front of me and I can't have it, right? Well, who's to say that you can't have it, right? So I think that a lot of it is the mindset, right? If you know that you are well hydrated, you're up on your protein, you've done all of those things earlier in the day, and it really is just a want and not I'm hungry, this is the food that's in front of me right now. Then going through some of the questions that Michaela came up on, like what is it that I'm feeling right now? What is it that I'm really wanting? Like, am I labeling this food, right? Is it me just fighting like my inner parent almost? But gosh, I mean, have some goldfish with lunch, right? Cool.
Right,
That
just like
at the end of the day might like help you find that balance a little bit better.
just like we do with kids, like, you like to create balanced meals for kids too. So like, instead of telling them like, no, fruit snacks are bad, you can't have those, like putting it on a plate with your cucumbers and your whatever kind of meat they'll eat, or, some kind of protein, some kind of vegetable, and then the fruit snacks, it takes it, the focus away from the fruit snacks, and then they're not going to want as many because, you're eating other things. Why can't we do the same for ourselves? Why can't you have your fruit snacks with your meal? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think also, like, why why do you feel the need to pick your kids' foods? Like, is it because you're not eating enough, or is it because you have waited too long to eat, so now you're hungry, but you haven't made yourself a meal? Like, I just think that would be the first thing that I would ask a client, like, okay, why is the need there at all?
And I think that happens often as a mom. Usually moms are busy through the morning. It's already time for their kids' lunch. It's 11 a.m. and they haven't really fed themselves or taken care of their own nutrition. So it's like, of course you're going to want to pick at your kids' food and you're hungry. And so, and that's like fast. Oftentimes there's going to be some fast carbohydrates there that are available. Like, and so it's hard to resist that. So I agree with Henrietta, like, put yourself in a good position so that when you are feeding your kids, like, you are in a good place too. So that you can actually decide, like, all right, do I want that? Not just like, oh my gosh, I'm so hungry and I'm tired and like, I'm just going to eat that right now because it's in front of me now. I'm too tired to make my own lunch. And then you miss your meal that you had maybe planned on making because then you're full from snacking. And so that can kind of turn into a vicious cycle. So eat something that's high protein in the beginning of the day, drink water. Those two things alone will help you so that you feel like, and then if you want the food, sit down and eat the food and don't demonize it.
Good opportunity to call yourself out too, like coming from like myself from a restricted background. Like, do I want that because I'm in my head somewhere, like maybe not consciously, but subconsciously saying like I shouldn't have that? And if that's the case, then again, like call yourself out on that and then add it to your meal.
Yeah. One last question, I think we have time for it, is how to get my kids involved in working out. I don't have any formal training, but would love for my two little guys to participate and still keep it safe. So obviously this is going to be a different answer depending on what age your kids are at. But when my kids were little, like, it was just fun for them to, maybe they would like do some squats with me, some body weight squats or whatever. I always just scale it down really, really basic to what I'm doing and give them just like something to work on. Now that my kids are older, like 9 years old, 8 years old, we have like the little Rogue kids barbells that are super small. And I might give them some instruction in the beginning on just, and that's hard to, like, I know on form, like what to cue them on and what to look for. So I would be nervous if you didn't to like have your kid do a deadlift next to you, but you can keep it really basic and maybe even just get there's the little like toy weights too that are available. Casey's age kids is probably like a good age for that. And like, just let them, you don't even really need to give them instruction. Just let them play with those toy weights while you're working out and they will think they're working out and have fun alongside you. And then
I've noticed like they want to do what you're doing, right? It's like, oh, mommy's doing push-ups. Like, it's okay if they're snaking or dolphin doing those push-ups. Like, it's the act of like, oh, look what mommy's doing. I want to do that too. And letting them know that exercise is fun and it makes you feel good. And it's not something that you do for punishment. Like, if it's not working out together and it's more so like, I want to get my kids active, remember they have short attention spans, right? So 2 minutes here, 4 minutes here, 2 minutes here, you're done. Great.
For sure. Like a 6-minute workout. Add a minute, basically add a minute with how old they are on the attention span. Yeah. Or maybe 2 minutes. But yeah, I think now that my kids are older, we'll do like a CrossFit style workout. My kids love to I'll incorporate things that aren't even like weights. So now that my kids are older, they of course want to do weightlifting. Like, I want to do the cool stuff that you're doing. So I will usually, for my big kids, will do maybe 10 minutes of like, okay, we're going to practice deadlifting. Like, you don't get to put weight on the bar until you are lifting. Like, I want you to look at your back. I want you to feel this. And so I give them a little instruction, like kind of a strength training lesson. Autumn would be great at this too, because they actually train kids at their gym ages 6, I think ages 8 and up. It's such a cool program, but I'll give them some instruction and then it's like a fun, quick paced workout. So I ask them usually what moves do you want to do? And they'll pick a couple moves that they think sound fun. And I'll just like incorporate it into a quick little workout. Maybe we'll do a few box jumps and maybe I'll get the band out and they can do a few pull-ups and then just like decide what sounds fun and do that with them. I also love my husband and I both come from like, he played football, I ran track. So like speed and agility is something that we both really love. And so we have a speed ladder. So we'll like run our kids through the speed ladder, which they love that. You can get a speed ladder on Amazon, even if you don't know what you're doing, like you can just mess around and just run through the ladder, 2 feet in each square, then do 1 foot in each square. And then you can do on the side, you can do skips like through it. You can do, there's so many options, hopping, really from like age 2 on, my kids have loved playing on the speed ladder. So that's like a fun thing you can incorporate with them too. We've gotten those little mini hurdles and have done different things with those. So just fun with them.
Running between the cones.
Oh yeah. Any of that stuff. But I would say just with the focus more so on fun and, not trying to necessarily load up the bar for them. Obviously keeping it safe is like number 1 priority, and just having the connection and like bonding time. And then from there, see how they progress. And it's probably going to be just like a natural progression for you of like, oh, I think you could try this now. So any other things on that you want to add? Sam, I know your kids are around when you work out.
Sometimes my daughter is the most interested. My son goes in phases, but I don't force it. That's a big thing for me. I don't force it if they don't want to. But like using the barbell, and they like to do gymnastics. So playing on the rings, touching their toes.
Oh yeah.
Pulling, like the dip bar, a lot of body weight movements right now. And then if they want to do weights, we have like little tiny, like 2-pound weights, sometimes 5-pound weights if she's, and then kettlebells. I tend to. We haven't used kettlebells or anything yet, but just let them experiment. I watch them. I don't try to fix anything that's like, too much, because then that turns them off.
They'll get frustrated. Yeah.
They don't, especially my daughter. If it's not perfect, she'll stop. So I try not to like give too much instruction, but if it looks really bad, then obviously I'm going to.
Yeah. Safety, but keeping it fun. So how much instruction to give, for sure. Different kids of mine want different levels of instruction too. So yeah. Well, thank you for joining, everyone. I love these questions. If you guys have any more, always just post them to the forum and we'll get to them on calls or throughout the week. So if there's anything we haven't covered and you want us to talk about, just post it on the groups. And we appreciate all of you guys joining. Have a good rest of your week. Thanks, guys, ladies.